All right, so I just got back from watching the highly anticipated Deadpool and Wolverine, the third Deadpool movie and the first one to take place in the MCU, at least, come into the MCU anyway. So this is the only MCU Marvel Studios movie we're getting this year. We're in a bit of after this there's going to be a bit of a break until February with Captain America, Brave New World. So this movie hopefully was good. But it seems like most audiences really enjoy it. Critics are kind of iffy on it, and I'm kind of split down the middle here. I really liked it in some parts, and then other parts I thought were, fine. So the parts that I really liked, I think there are a lot of jokes in here that are really funny, especially the ones that are sort of the self-deprecating superhero jokes that Deadpool makes about superhero movies and Marvel in general. And not just that stuff, he also makes jokes about, Disney and Fox and all that stuff. I thought those jokes were really clever. There's also some really cool cameos in this movie. I'm not going to spoil any of them, but they are also very cleverly used. They also aren't just pointless cameos like some other movies have done. They actually further the plot, so the cameos make sense, so that was refreshing. And the performances as well, I really liked. Ryan Reynolds, as always, is perfect as Deadpool, and we already know Hugh Jackman is really good as Wolverine, and he's really good as Wolverine here. It's really nice to finally see him in the yellow suit, like in the comics. It's just really cool. There's also a lot of fun Easter eggs in here that aren't necessarily cameos, but they are Easter eggs, and that's a lot of fun to see as well. So I enjoyed all of that. The stuff that I was a bit more iffy on is the overall actual story of the movie is kind of weak. The villain is kind of, she's not a great villain. She's not terrible. There's been worse villains in a superhero movie before, but she doesn't really stand out as a really good one. She's no Thanos or Vulture from Spider-Man Homecoming, but she's fine. The plot, like I mentioned earlier, is kind of thin. If you're not super into the Deadpool movies, or even just the Fox movies in general, it's going to be kind of hard for you to really invest in the story part of this movie, and I found that true for me, because when I was growing up, my Marvel movies were the MCU movies. I didn't grow up with the Fox X-Men movies. They were still kind of coming out, but most of the movies that this one is referencing came out when I was like, 4, 5, 6, and I wasn't watching those kinds of movies at that age. I know other kids were, but I wasn't. So I have since seen those movies, and I appreciate them for what they are, but I have no real nostalgia-based fondness for these movies, like a lot of people do. So because I'm not super duper invested in the Fox X-Men movies, I wasn't super duper invested in the plot of this movie. But again, this movie is not really about the plot. It is there, but it's more about the jokes, the action, the performances, the cameos, and just giving you a real good time. And I feel like this movie does give you a good time, with some caveats. This movie is extremely violent. If extreme violence of any kind makes you queasy, don't watch this movie. There's also a lot of crude, sort of lowest common denominator, lowbrow humor that I personally am not a fan of. I don't think it's very funny, and Deadpool has been known to have that kind of humor. It's not throughout, not every joke is like this, but it is throughout the whole movie. So there's also that to be aware of. If that is something that you don't like, then probably give this one a skip. But if that's the case, then you probably haven't seen any of the Deadpool movies anyway. So there is also those caveats. This is definitely, even though it's a Marvel movie, it's a superhero movie, it is not a movie intended for kids. I'm sure lots of kids will see it, but I know a lot of parents will not want their kids to see it. So just keep that in mind if you're thinking about taking the kids. Use your own judgment. But yeah, if you're interested, Deadpool and Wolverine, currently in theaters right now. You can go ahead and check it out.